What does masculinity look like in moments of crisis? The 2002 animated film Lilo and Stitch, directed by Chris Sanders and Dean DeBloy, follows a young Hawaiian girl named Lilo, who forms an unexpected bond with an alien named Stitch. Set in Hawaii, the film explores themes of family, belonging, and identity. In film, masculinity is often constructed through visual and narrative control. Male characters are typically framed as central figures through dominant screen positioning, motivated camera movement, and active blocking, allowing them to direct the action within the diegetic space.
Are you not entertained?
However, in Lilo and Stitch, this sequence reorganizes that structure. Traditional markers of masculinity such as agency, control, and spatial dominance are assigned to non-human characters, while the local male figure is visually and narratively decentered. The sequence begins with Stitch rescuing Lilo and declaring,
Nobody gets left behind.
the scene uses tight framing, including medium shots, which centers Stitch within the composition and establishes him as the visual focal point. Through blocking, Stitch positions his body around Lilo, holding her close while facing outward, effectively placing himself between her and danger. This positioning functions symbolically as his body becomes a protective barrier, reinforcing the traditional masculine role of the protector. The light contrast further isolates Stitch against the darker interior of the ship, visually elevating him within the frame. Through central framing, protective blocking, and emphasized lighting, Stitch is constructed as the figure of authority and control within the scene. Despite being an alien, he is symbolically aligned with traditional markers of masculinity, suggesting that power and protection are displaced from the human male figure. As the ship explodes, Stitch and Lilo leap from onto the red ship below. The explosion fills the frame with smoke and debris, creating obscured framing that disrupts spatial clarity and momentarily disorients the viewer. Despite this visual chaos, the camera maintains continuous tracking, keeping Stitch and Lilo centered and visually legible within the frame. Through blocking and directional movement, their bodies move with purpose from one ship to another, establishing control rather than being consumed by the surrounding destruction. While the environment collapses, their movement remains deliberate and contained. This moment shows that power is not just about surviving the explosion, but about staying visible and in control even when everything around them is falling apart.
Lilo!
As the smoke fills the sky, Nani looks upward trying to locate Lilo. She is framed in a medium shot, capturing both her facial expression and upper body movement as she reacts to what she cannot see. The scene uses obscured framing, where the thick smoke blocks her line of sight, limiting her access to the surrounding space. This moment shifts the scene from control to uncertainty, where the inability to see becomes a form of powerlessness. In this moment, power isn't just about action, it's about visibility, and Nani has neither.
Good dog!
As the red ship exits the smoke, the scene begins with a tighter framing on Stitch holding Lilo. The camera then zooms out, expanding the frame and revealing that he is also holding the larger alien. This shift from tighter framing to a wider shot increases spatial visibility, allowing the full extent of the action to be understood. The camera movement, particularly the zoom out, functions as gradual reveal of his control, emphasizing that he is managing multiple elements within the scene, followed by a reaction shot of Nani and the other aliens cheering. Through this reaction, the film not only shows control, but confirms it within the narrative as the other characters respond to his dominance. David is introduced in a long shot, positioned on his surfboard within the open ocean. The wide composition integrates him into the environment rather than isolating him as a focal point within the frame. His blocking, including his relaxed posture and steady stance, suggests a lack of urgency as he remains unaware on the ongoing conflict behind him. Notably, the red spaceship descends in the background, occupying a separate spatial plane that David does not acknowledge. This use of depth and background action creates a contrast between what the audience can see and what the character perceives. As the ship approaches and eventually crashes into the water, its movement displaces David, pushing him out of position through force rather than choice. David's unawareness positions him outside the central action, where he is not only excluded from control, but also from the knowledge of the event itself. David is visually present yet disconnected from the narrative's core movement. At this moment, masculinity is not expressed through action or awareness, but through passivity, where the character exists within the scene but does not shape it.
Oh, man. Hey, Lilo.
Can you give us a ride to shore?
Sure, but I have to make 2 trips.
After being displaced into the water, David resurfaces, his positioning within the frame remains off-center, while Lilo and Stitch continue to occupy the visual and narrative focus. When Lilo asks him to guide them back to the shore, his role becomes explicitly supportive rather than directive. This moment finalizes his position within the narrative, not as the agent of action, but as a facilitator. In terms of masculinity, he does not embody control or dominance, but rather assistance and compliance. His presence contributes to the resolution, but it does not define it. Across this sequence, masculinity is constructed through a hierarchy of visibility, spatial control, and agency. Through framing, blocking, and movement, extraterrestrial characters are positioned as dominant figures who control the action and occupy the center of the frame. In contrast, the local male figure is rendered unaware and displaced, limiting his ability to act within the scene. This reflects a form of unmanning, where masculinity is not removed, but reconfigured through visual marginalization and lack of control. Ultimately, this scene challenges conventional representations of masculinity in film. Masculinity is no longer defined by presence alone, but by control over space, movement, and action within the frame. In this case, that control is removed from the human male figure, leaving him present, but visually and narratively diminished.